those bangs and pops you can hear, that's not a backfiring car, and don't worry, we're not being shot at. Those are balloons being popped, because we are in the main arena, the Democratic National Convention. Kamala Harris has finished her speech. Thousands of balloons fell from the ceiling. And now that the delegates have gone, the balloons are going bang.
Yeah, the balloons are going bang, and the delegates are absolutely delighted, and they're all rushing away with their posters that they were holding up during the speech. No question about its success here, the way it fell here in the hall. But of course, it wasn't just aimed here at the hall. It was aimed at the whole nation, at introducing Kamala Harris to America in a way that persuades the American people that they should vote for her in November. That's the question. Did she manage that feat of communication? Welcome to Americast. Tim Walz looks the part, and he dresses the part, and that was even mentioned by Obama. He got a shirt a bit fancier than mine, but I've kind of, mine is a tribute to Tim Walz sort of shirt. But she looked, I thought, majestic. Actually, she looked really cool, and that's part of the business of saying to America, "This is me, who I am."
This is who I am, and do I look like a president? So for Americasters who haven't seen her, she was in a very sharp navy suit with great shoulder pads. It was angular and it was modern, with a navy blue blouse underneath with a bit of a pussy bow. She is reclaiming pussy bows from Margaret Thatcher and Melania Trump, but maybe making them cool.
Well, your great British political analyst, Eddie Izzard, says it's 99% how you look, 1% what you say. So, I mean, she did. She presented herself in a presidential way, although there has never been a woman president. I think it definitely, the look and the demeanor and the delivery was what you would expect of what she needed to do.
Okay, how did she do though when it came to the vital business of communication? Communication first of who she was.
Yeah, I mean, that was the main thing, right? She had to introduce herself to the American public, who knows that she's vice president, knows who she is, but doesn't know what she stands for or where she came from. And I thought when she was talking about her immigrant mother and about growing up as the child of a single parent in Oakland, California, not the good part of Oakland, not the part up in the hills, but the flats, which are the working class neighborhood. She described that, and then she went back to it later on and said, I care about the middle class because that's who I am, and that's where I came from.
My mother kept a strict budget. We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little. And she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us and to be grateful for them. because, as she taught us, opportunity is not available to everyone.
I think she did that introduction well, that ticked that box. I think the talking about policy was pretty general, pretty vague. So if you were looking for specifics about what she would do, addressing housing, lowering Medicare, medical costs, lowering groceries, I mean, she got into that, but she didn't really get into the how and the details.
I just didn't think she was that engaging, either with the story of where she came from or what she was going to do for the country. Now, maybe that's because the bar's been set really, really high this week. We have heard some stupendously good political speeches this week from both of the Obamas, from Tim Walz last night. I mean, the standard has been extremely high. That was all right. I mean, it was quite good. It's one of the better speeches maybe that Kamala Harris has given. It wasn't one of the best speeches of the week. It maybe wasn't one of the best speeches of the day.
But having said that, two things. Number one, I think she's got much better control now of her laugh and the kind of things that made her slightly great as a communicator of politics. And I thought particularly the moment when she accepted the nomination.
On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
And then there was a moment where she's standing there and there's huge applause and people shouting and all the rest of it. And she didn't kind of laugh awkwardly, grin in the way that sometimes she has done in the past. She's got a kind of better control. And I think there's no question she has practiced this look, this sort of presidential / regal look. And I thought that side of it went much better for her. I also thought that when she addressed policy issues, for instance, the border, so she actually brought up the border, which is possibly her weakest issue, with it being an enormous problem politically, and a problem that the Republicans are well ahead on and Trump himself well ahead on, and this kind of sense that the Democrats have just let things slip and there's a huge amount of illegal immigration that there shouldn't be and it's happened on their watch. She gave their line that they give many times before, where we were ready to sign a tough bill and Donald Trump stopped it being signed by the Republicans. And that actually is true.
As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
But the fact that she was willing to go there suggested to me that she is going, during the course of the rest of the campaign, to be willing to take on these issues and to answer them. And I think that's a really important part of her now, because if she tried to just shy away from stuff, which she has been accused of doing, and to an extent she has done. She hasn't done tough interviews, but she's no longer shying away from these things. And I think, if you're a Harris supporter, that's probably quite important.
The other tough thing she took on head on was Israel and Gaza, because that's been the big divisive issue during the whole of this convention. There have been large protests. In fact, the biggest protests were tonight outside the convention, with pro-Palestinian protesters complaining about America's support for Israel's war on Hamas.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock, because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done.
And she was absolutely resolute in defending Israel's right to defend itself and saying that America would always support Israel. And she also was, said that the suffering in Gaza was heartbreaking and terrible, and she was strong on that. I thought it was really interesting that she mentioned Israel first, though. We know that this hall is absolutely full of people who are really anxious about what's happening to Palestinian people. And she didn't put it first. She talked about Israel initially. And it was, whether it was wise or not, I don't know, but it was brave.
And talked about the October 7th attacks and about the people who were slaughtered and the sexual assault, all these things that, there were a lot of people, maybe inside the arena, but certainly a lot more people outside the arena who would have heard that and been really upset. And Israel's right to defend itself, they would always support that. I felt like there was a moment when she was saying that where if she had paused a little longer, she would have gotten jeered. There would have been people yelling back at her.
Jeered here, but not around the country. And that's the point, isn't it? Is this part of a general tacking to the center median voter theory, and all that. This kind of idea that actually the way to win an election, it was always the old idea in America before Trump, the way to win an election, don't just excite your own side, go to the middle, get a few from the other side as well. And I wonder whether that is now going to be her campaign.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I mean, this was a speech policy-wise on Gaza, on everything else that I think Joe Biden could have delivered. There wasn't anything that felt like a market break from the administration up until now. And, she's part of the administration, so I guess that shouldn't come as a huge shock. But there were a lot of people saying, oh, this is an opportunity for her to distinguish herself, to move herself away to get some daylight between her and Joe Biden. I think the calculation is among her campaign is that Joe Biden's policies are popular. The things he's done, his legislative accomplishments are things that people like. It's just Joe Biden himself that a lot of people had a problem with. So, she's going to do Biden's policies, but not be Biden, be someone who looks different and looks younger.
I'm not sure that works, so she does it. She's got to be future-facing, and if she really is going to fail to separate herself from him, I think that's a problem.
I tell you where else I was thinking exactly the same thing as I was listening to her, thinking maybe this is the speech they wrote for Joe Biden, and they just emailed it to her as well. And that's because of the way she was talking about Donald Trump. Firstly, she talked about him a lot, again and again and again. She brought up Donald Trump, criticizing him, but not in the way we've heard from other people this week, where they've been jeering at him, laughing, mocking him. We were back to this idea that Donald Trump is a menace who might destroy American democracy, and that's why this is one of the most important elections the nation has ever faced. That may be a very strong case to make, but it's not what we've really been hearing from Harris and Waltz up until now. That's more of a Joe Biden tack.
Although she did call him unserious as a man, which I think it was probably in keeping with what we have been hearing during the course of the week, which is not to build him up. There's this sense, we've talked about it before, haven't we, of when Biden talked about Trump as sort of building him into this huge menacing figure. And she was still on side, wasn't he, for cutting him down. That unserious word.
She was talking about him as an autocrat and a dictator and the threats that he posed. For
even that serious line, it was, he may be an unserious man, but what he's doing is serious, and he presents a serious threat to the country. And talked about January 6th, which, also something that Joe Biden would talk a lot about. She talked about the threat to democracy. So these were things, you're right, that were a different way of attacking Donald Trump than we saw from the Obamas. The pathway, remember, we were talking the blueprint that the Obamas set out. She didn't necessarily decide to follow that blueprint, at least tonight.
Tell you what she didn't talk about is being a woman.
Yeah,
I mean,
not once.
Unmentioned.
Yeah.
Contrast with Hillary Clinton. Oh, my goodness. Glass ceiling and all that stuff. Conscious decision, obviously. Just blanket. Don't go there.
You don't need to say it.
Good idea, bad idea?
I think we've reached a point where it's hopefully less controversial that you've got women running, so you don't need to make...
Right, so times have changed, yeah.
Yes. You've got a whole generation of voters, men and women, who never had the chance to vote for Hillary Clinton, who are involved in this, who hopefully don't see this as a remarkable thing. But you can't see her, you can't listen to her, you can't think about her without knowing that she's a woman. You don't need to point it out.
Yeah, but there are a few, aren't there? And, to be kind of crass about it, it's blue-collar, white, working men in some key states who it was felt, and actually I think it's unquestionably true, there is polling evidence that it's true, didn't like Hillary Clinton because they felt that she was hectoring and lecturing and this kind of pantsuited professional class pampered person telling them they're racist and sexist and all the rest of it. And she's, that is a trap potentially that she has, I don't know, seen and gone round. Is that what we're thinking?
The dig on Hillary Clinton was that she reminds you of your first wife's divorce lawyer. Not a good thing for a politician.
Yeah.
I mean, Kamala Harris definitely avoided that. She did talk a little bit about her mom and her mom being a brown woman who, she saw.
But it was oblique, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was oblique. It never was direct head-on in the way we heard Hillary Clinton just, 3 days
over and over again.
3 days ago talk about the historic nature of her candidacy, the historic nature of Kamala Harris's candidacy. Kamala Harris didn't seem interested.
And on that note, I got to go. I got other things to do. It's normally you two have other things to do. I'm impressed with myself.
We'll miss you.
Stakhanovite. I'll miss you. See you in... No, I probably won't see you again, actually.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
I'll see you from the worldwide headquarters.
It's been great having all this year together and to be able to talk like this.
Bye,
Bye.
Justin. One of the best things about being at events like this Democratic National Convention is the opportunity to call a really senior political figures and get to talk to them face to face. You can find out what's really going on behind the scenes with the little chats you have in the corridor. And Justin was able to do quite well by getting hold of Jim Messina. Now, he was Deputy Chief of Staff in the White House under Obama and, probably more importantly, managed the 2012 re-election Obama campaign. So Justin had a word with him about how things are going for the Democrats now and whether the mood here in Chicago is the right one going into the election.
Kamala Harris has had the last 30 days since she got in this race. It's had the best 30 days I've seen in American politics in a very long time, since the beginning of the Obama campaign. But she's still tied. She's still now, Democrats have clawed up from being down 5 to now tied. And we're in a tied race with 75 days left. So it's great. And I think enthusiasm really matters because you need people to be enthusiastic to get their friends to support people, to give money. So you'd rather be enthusiastic. On the other hand, we've never tried to explain to the country in this fast who this new candidate is. And you guys understand that from your snap elections. These things are hard.
It's quite difficult, actually, to work out, isn't it, who is going to vote, let alone how they're going to vote.
Yeah, and 8 million Americans have died since the last presidential election. 12 million young people have registered. In America, the polls are almost wrong, always wrong. The polls had Joe Biden winning a landslide last time, and he barely held on. So when I was running Obama and when I was running David Cameron, I would threaten to fire anyone who would look at polls. I don't care about polls. I care about enthusiasm. I care about whether we're controlling the narrative.
So that's it for our week in Chicago, which is a shame, Anthony. I really enjoyed it here. I like Chicago a lot, but we move on as this campaign inevitably moves on towards the next big fixed point, which is the presidential debate, Trump versus Harris, on stage in Philadelphia on the 10th of September. But you don't have to wait until then to get in another Americast. We'll be back next week. I'm going to try and take a couple of days off. I assume you will, Anthony.
I'm going to do my best.
But we will be back next week. Until then, remember, you can always get in touch with us in all the usual ways.
Okay, that includes via WhatsApp, +44 330 123 9480. Email americast@bbc.co.uk. Social media, #Americast. And Discord, you can find the link in the description of this podcast.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Americast.
Americast from BBC News.